Hello and welcome to Table Talk. This is our first episode back since we have slowed production due to the pandemic, and we are going to talk about the 2020 census. Our guests today are County Executive Jimmy Haley and Miss Lana Whitlock, who is on our local census committee. Welcome to the show. So happy to see people back in the studio to film again.
Not quite normal, but getting close.
Yeah, we're still distancing as much as we can, trying to be safe.
I still got my mask in my pocket, so I do wear that. So
yeah, that's good.
It's good protection.
And so, you know, one of the victims, I guess, of the pandemic has been the attention on the census and the importance of that. So we need to talk about that. Just for us, I say us millennials, I'm not a millennial, but for those who have not participated in a census before, one of you tell that generation what the census is.
Well, since I'm an econ and a government teacher for so many years, one of the things that is in the Constitution is in Article 1, Section 2, and the framers of the Constitution in Philadelphia thought it was important enough that every resident in the United States of America be counted. And so every 10 years, they call it decennial, starting in 1790, every resident, not citizen, every resident was asked to complete a census and to be counted. And the importance was to make sure for representation in Congress in particular, but also representation in the states, not only for the General Assembly, but who they do send to Washington. It was important for them to be counted. Every man, woman, and child that's alive as of April 1st, 2020 will be counted in this census, and has been every 10 years ever since 1790, when the Constitution required that every resident complete that census. So it is a constitutional duty. It's part of our civic responsibility to do that. So we encourage each and every person in Warren County. And so our committee that we call for this, our complete count committee, we call it Warren Counts. Why? Because we do count in every single thing that this census provides.
Mm-hmm. So it matters so much, and been doing it since the beginning of the country, so it's that important that it has lasted throughout the years, and so many vital things that we need are tied to those census numbers. Some people get concerned on how the data is used, so talk to us about that a little bit.
Well, it is personal information, and we understand that people do have a little problem submitting that, but they don't look at social numbers. They don't look at any of the thing that's pertinent information. The information that it's there is safe and secure. It is guaranteed. It's not shared between agencies. The data that is collected and the demographics that are collected are oftentimes shared, but no specifics with names and genders and race or any personal information on how many people are living in your, none of that is shared with anything, just the numbers. So how many people in the age groups are oftentimes shared as well. But it's led to really revisiting amongst businesses when they go to build a new building in McMinnville or a new fast food chain. They do look at demographics. They look at the growth rate of the population. They look at income levels. They look at gender. They look at these things in order to know whether Warren County is worth an investment with a new Zaxby's or a new fast food restaurant or a new box store. So it is important when it comes to those sort of things. As far as the federal government and state government are concerned, federal funding coming from Washington is based upon the census. So we have federal food lunch programs, we have federal highway safety monies that are shared with the states. And so the population count in each individual county is important. Also the growth rate of the population is important as well. So we want to stress that the information and data is secure. And the personal information is never shared, not even between government agencies. So I know people are suspicious now, the government and Big Brother's watching you, but that's further than the truth. The census has always been secure. It's always been safe, and that information has not been shared. So we want to stress that. So for millennials and younger people who don't think it's important, well, if you're a mom and dad with 2 or 3 small children and your children attend public school, the federal food lunch programs that go through our education, the funding that comes from the state of Tennessee is based upon population. So it's an important factor to figure in. And every person does count. It's extremely important, even from the smallest of child. And so, you know, homeless groups, we're counting them. The people that are incarcerated, we're counting them. The people at the nursing homes, assisted living, we're counting them. The people that are hotels, living kind of as permanent guests, we are counting them. So everyone will be counted if you just participate in the census.
And as we said, you know, anything from new jobs coming into the county to federal dollars coming in to help us with, could be roads, could be all those sidewalks, anything
hospitals,
that, yes, right.
Housing, building schools.
EMA services, health department services, all those things are used. And so there's $675 billion a year that's distributed to the states based upon the census. And one of the things that concerns me is that we had such a low response rate 10 years ago. 67%, I think it went up when the door-to-door census takers were there, but that's going to be few and far between this year about going door-to-door. So it's important that we get the information out. You fill out the application, the census form, and you send it in just as soon as possible. If you got a written one, fine. You can do it on the phone, you can do it online, and we'll talk to that a little bit later, but it is important to make sure that those are done.
And you mentioned about representation on the state and national level. The numbers that we have of representatives there matter to us. It helps with the, you know,
It actually
initiatives.
determines the number of seats that we have in Congress.
And the House of Representatives is
vitally
determined by that. And some states have lost population over the years, and they've lost representation. The fastest growing states, California, Texas, New York, Florida, Illinois has lost some, but the fastest growing states continue to add representation. It's the same thing in the state of Tennessee. The bigger cities, the urban populations are growing rapidly. Rural populations are not growing as quick. And so a lot of rural populations are losing representation, even in Nashville, or they're adding another county or two to state representatives or state senators' districts. And so instead of having a larger voice and a louder voice, we end up having less of a voice. Why? Because Nashville's growing. And so the number of people that are representing Nashvillians outdistance a lot of the rural communities, particularly in the Upper Cumberland. So Senator Bowling and Representative Sherrill and Bricken have all pushed the importance of making sure that this census is complete. If we get 90+%, this is great. It adds to the credibility that we are a growing, thriving community, not a dying community, losing in population. So we really don't even know what the numbers are in Moore County. The estimates are anywhere from 40 to 45,000. But if we only had a 67% response rate and the rest is basically on estimates, then you know, we could be between 45 and 50,000 easily. And for job recruitment, new industries moving here, new business investments in fast food or restaurants or box stores, and even for the amount of money that's available from Small Business Administration and others to help small businesses get started is based upon population growth and those metrics. So it is extremely, extremely important.
So, you know, we traditionally, years ago, I think about the census takers, as you say, and going door to door. Let's talk about how the census can be completed, because there's a big push for some different ways this year.
So, Lana, if you want to address that.
Okay. First off, everyone has probably already received their packet in the mail. Some may have just thrown it over on the table or side table. It's very simple. They're going to get that notification first, and then there's going to be a length of time that they're going to get a second notification, and then that's when somebody's going to start come knocking on your door. Okay, it's going to be somebody. It's going to be fewer since COVID-19 has come into play, but they've made it exceptionally easy now. Used to, it was just by paper. Now you can fill it out on your phone. You can go to the website, my2020census.gov. It's very simple. Now, for myself, I filled out the census online. I looked at the paper one. The internet was much easier. And, it's simple, guys. It's just, we can't express, these questions are not so intrusive. They're very simple questions, it's on the census, and it takes literally minutes to fill out.
I know,
So,
I think I did
it's
mine online 5 minutes.
5 minutes.
Or less,
So,
if even that.
And that determines financially for our county, not just for our our younger children for schools and things like that, but even for our older demographic, everybody in our county.
Well, if you do not have access to the internet or computer at home, you can go the traditional route, as you said,
Yes.
paper.
Yes, on the paper form. You'll just fill that out and then just drop it back in the envelope, put it back in the mailbox, and away it'll go. If you wanted to have assistance and you wanted to make sure everything was filled out, then we're going to offer those services here in Warren County at numerous locations. If you have any kind of questions about it, you're not really for sure, do I count this, do I do that? We're going to try to make it as simple as possible for everyone here.
Good.
Lana, you might want to go over some of the questions that are actually
Yeah,
asked on the census, because it is simple. There's just
It
a
is,
handful of questions.
Yeah. And don't be scared of it. That's the main thing. It's just somebody's like, they're asking personal information. But some of the questions are, do you own or do you rent? Your phone number, your name, basically if you're male or female, your age and your date of birth, if you're Hispanic, Latino, or of Spanish origin, your race, whether a person lives with you full-time. A lot of children, we have split families now, so a child may live here with mom part of the time, with dad, different locations. When you do it online, it makes it a little bit simpler to where you list that on both of the census, like with a mom and a dad, to where even though you may think they're going to be counted twice, they do check that to where that child's only counted one time. Basically, the relationship of every person living in the household. So I believe trying to remember if a friend is a choice and others. So if it's some college roommates and they're living somewhere, each person at that location needs to be counted, not just the one person that's on the lease or whatever. Every person counts.
And one thing
then
that
there's
was, the one thing I was going to say is the last little thing is the citizenship question has been basically removed from that. It's not going to be a huge part that people thought it was to begin with. So, there's been some constitutional questions about that, but we're basically just wanting to count every resident.
Yes,
every resident, whether you're a citizen or not. Representation, counting the number of people is important. And so if the numbers are not there, if we're not able to secure an accurate number or the response rate is very low, there is the opportunity to challenge that. And I've already told the census people that if the numbers are not up, we can't afford to be undercounted. We just cannot afford not to be able to count every single resident that's here. It's your civic duty and responsibility. It's not an intrusion upon your personal privacy. The information is confidential, it's secure. Only the demographic sections about how many people in this age group or how many males, those are the kind of things or whatever that are important to know when we're doing any kind of grants, when we're actually applying for federal funding, for any kind of programs. Those things are important because it gives credibility to who we are and what we are as a community. And so from health services, if I'm trying to get a new health department, if we see a growing need for health services in Warren County, then that gives me credibility on how to apply for a grant, saying, State Department of Tennessee, Commissioner Piercy, we need a new health department. Why? Because our population has grown this percent. This is the age group it's growing. These are the number of people that need to be serviced. These are the people that are uninsured. So we need those services to be provided for our county. And so the same thing for schools. We can't plan for more schools unless we know what the population growth is. And so that's an important thing as well. So we've been blessed, but a lot of our schools are busting at the seams. So we know the populations have grown. We know the number of real estate transactions across Warren County has increased dramatically over the last 5 to 10 years. And so we know people are moving here. We know those people need to be counted. And so people had a question, so what if I have a home here and a home in Nashville? What is your permanent address? What is your permanent address? That's where you fill out the census. I would love for you to say Rock Island is your permanent address rather than Nashville so we can count you. But what is your permanent address? What do you consider that? Your essential place of residence.
I will
So,
say too, when we're doing grant applications for fiber, we pull census numbers from that because we get federal grants a lot of times to build the fiber. Nowhere on census information do you ever find specific names,
Ever.
anything like that. It's always percentages and just numbers. You're just a number when it comes to the census, and we will emphasize if you live in the United States, you need to be counted.
You need to be counted.
Yeah, it doesn't matter if you're a resident or not, so.
It
So-
seems to now that they've made it much easier for people. So, visit the website. If you don't have access, we have our local library. We have several different locations to be able to do things like that. So.
Well, and I know since attending a few of the census meetings that happened here locally, there was a lot of plans pre-COVID-19 to have block initiatives so people in communities could come out. How have the plans for things like that changed on a local level since the pandemic hit?
well, with the governor's Tennessee pledge and guidelines, large gatherings of people have been discouraged. Not basically forbidden, just basically discouraged. And so if you're doing a block party and you've got 200 people showing up, it's very hard to social distance. So originally we got, Warren County was blessed, the county got a grant and the city got a grant in order to promote and market the census out there to our residents. And so we've had to reconfigure and refigure some of those options. So we're doing ads on the radio, we're doing shows like this, we're being a little bit more visible with some new signage and some banners that are out. And so we're going to do some social messaging as well. You'll be probably also receiving some phone calls from some well-established people, from phone numbers that you might remember or know. They may say the city of McMinnville, on the caller ID, so that you know that they're legitimate and not somebody trying to, fleece you out of something. So during the days of the COVID virus, there are a lot of suspicious phone calls, but we promise the phone calls that come from us are legitimate, and we're going to identify ourselves. We've already done some robocalls through the school system, encouraging families, particularly school-age children, to fill out those forms, get them in as quickly as possible. So we are redirecting our resources, reconfiguring some of our operations. And one of the things that Lana's going to talk about here shortly is about some of our drive-through opportunities that we're going to do to allow citizens to come and fill out things and get it done and complete your census and live happily ever after as a community. So.
Right. Well, let's jump into the alternative methods, the drive-throughs.
Well, that was one of our biggest things, is the social distancing and finding different locations where we can get several people through, where it's safe for everyone to pull in, pull out. So our first drive-up census is going to be held at the Senior Center, which, if you're not familiar where the Senior Center is, we're located directly across from Boyd Christian School at 809 Morrison Street. We're going to set up, our very first one is going to be June the 3rd, and we're going to be there from 11 a.m. to 1 p.m. Anybody, it doesn't have to be a senior or a member of the Senior Center. This is open for anybody. If you know of, and that's the second thing I was going to do, is encourage, if you know someone that that may need assistance, bring them. We're going to help them out. So what they're going to do is just pull up, come through. A volunteer is going to step up next to the vehicle. Of course, we're going to use all of our precautions, of course, and
Right.
then what we're going to do is go through their census. And at that point, then once they've completed that, then we're going to enter them for some door prizes. So
All right,
we're going to
so
make it
some
worth
fun
their while.
things. That's
right. Fun
There are going to be
things.
some goodies there. So we're just encouraging people. This is very important for our community. And so, we're trying to make it as easily as possible. So we're going to be set up at different locations. We may be at some of the schools. We may be at some of the businesses here in town. We may be, just listen, because we're going to put all that on, of course, on social media. We'll put it on the local radio stations, and we'll just get the word out where we're going to be at. So.
And is there a social media, a Warren Counts page for Facebook or whatever
At
to
this
get
point, it's,
information, or what are the social
haven't,
media
yeah.
outlets?
At this point in time, we've not gotten a Warren Counts Facebook page at this point. So,
But check your news media
check your news
accounts.
media. It could be on, of course, the Warren County page. We may have tickers. I know at with Bin
I'm
Laden,
sure the
the
radio
utility
station.
has put all these messages on their bills, and thank you very much for taking care
Yes.
of that for us. You know, visit this, you know, the census website and things like
Okay.
that. So we're trying to make it as visible as possible. We'll probably do some Facebook Live things, you know, putting different people up, telling how easy it is.
Okay, good deal.
So there's warn count signs up and around the community as well, so you'll probably see an increase in those. We're going to do a little bit more social media exposure. It has been extended through October now, so
Right.
you know, because of the pandemic and the slow response around the country, and so many people, you know, predisposed to just survival during this crisis period, we're hoping that the extension will allow us a little bit more time. The only thing about it is our grant only goes through June 30th, so we have to get all of our grant monies spent and allocated for promotion, and that's what we're trying to do through that. So the door prizes and things that we're giving away through these drive-thrus is part of our promotion. So we're hoping that I will get more people to come out and do something. So there may be some free food, some freezer pops. Who knows what will be at every one. So we'll try to scatter those out across the community, particularly in some of the high-risk areas that and populations that we're targeting to fill out the census, because they are more at risk at not completing the census. So we're trying to target some of that as well and do a little outreach and get those people to buy in that this is important, and so it's crucial, you know, for the future of our county to complete this.
Yeah, I will, you know, one of my questions was the toughest demographic to reach, but if you own a business and you have people that work for you who may fall into that demographic of, you know, not getting the mail or something of that nature, or, you know, family member who's a shut-in or something of that nature, that's how you can help, is by helping them complete it or bring them to one of these drive-throughs or whatever works. So if, you know, you were mailed the census and you're like me, you get a lot of mail, and it ends up in misplaced or lost, is there a phone number that they could even call to fill the census out, or they're going to be contacted again?
They're going to be contacted. Yes, you will receive a letter in the mail.
Okay.
But if you want to get ahead, visit that my2020census.gov. And on your packet, to tell you a little bit about, if you do visit the website, in your initial packet that you got, you had a 12-digit code that you would
Yes.
enter in. If you do not have that packet, it will let you bypass that. You just go down to the bottom, click, I do not have the ID, and then it's going to start asking you your actual physical address.
Okay.
So
okay.
it's very simple. If you don't panic if you don't have that piece, you know, that packet that came in the mail.
Okay.
So-
What else do we need to talk about?
Well, we have been
What's-
targeting our homeless population as well, so we've already had some people going out and polling them and getting information. Low-income housing units and subsidized housing units, we've been trying to target them with some information as well. I'm getting a better response from them. A lot of elderly people, you know, have just, you know, been consumed with trying to protect themselves, and so we've tried to do so much outreach for them. You know, but one of the groups that we're really worried about right now is millennials. And so millennials, you know, do not really have a good opinion of government sometimes, and they don't think it's important. And so, you know, less government is more freedom for them. So they just kind of distance themselves from forms. They don't look at the mailbox. They don't have home phones. And so we're going to try to target a little bit more texting, some group texting messages to get those out, and to once again encourage, like the young professionals and other folks in and around McMinnville, to encourage that participation, particularly in the millennial population. Many of them have small children, so it's very important for them to be counted. So, and millennials understand where it's coming from and what it's for. And you're saying you're investing in those children, in their future, in daycare and kindergarten programs, and things at the school that are important to those families, then I think we'll be able to get them to buy into it as well. So it's been extremely important that we get a unified message out. Our Complete Counts Committee has involved people from school and local business and the media. from the Latino population as well. So we've had people from the Senior Center and from the Housing Authority and others. So we've tried to get a big buy-in from our local Complete Counts Committee to get those people to get that message out and that information shared with the most important people.
Yeah, and as the last result or the last mile will be the nice census person knocking on your
Knocking on the
door.
door.
As back when I was a kid, sometimes that happened. Back in the 70s, seems like census takers were more of a thing that you saw more commonly. But we've got so many better ways, I guess, to fill out online without having to send someone out. We appreciate both of you being here today to talk to us about
Thank
the
you.
census. It's nice to be starting to get back to normal and talk about other things, and this is important. As I said, before the COVID hit, it was on our minds a lot more, and now it's nice for it to be back on our minds to be talking about good things going on in our community. And I'll thank our audience for joining us again today for Table Talk. We hope to see you again next week, and until then, spread the word about the census and help anyone who needs help filling out their form, and please stay safe. Have a great week.